Yeah. Groundbreakin.
How's it going, Shayak? Welcome to the Groundbreakin. How's it going?
Hey, Deepak, thanks a lot for having me here. It's going fine. Super excited to be here and having this conversation.
Yeah.
So, looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot for spending your Saturday recording the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be a good time spent. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, Shayak, tell us a bit about yourself, the kind of work you're doing, about a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, I think so. I currently head design at Myntra, right? Um, I've spent last 10 years, I think more than 10 years, I think, in the B2C consumer internet space, working at different companies. But if I go track back, I did my undergraduate in architecture, right? And I was preparing for IIT standard from when you come from a tier two city, like, everyone around you is basically preparing for IIT JE after some time.
Even me.
Huh?
Even me.
Yeah. So I think we most of us can relate to that. So, but then by the stroke of luck, so I gave IIT and then I got this field which is architecture, and it kind of felt right because I was quite I mean, like, I used to do a lot of drawing and sketching, and used to be. I also used to create architectural drawings when I was in school. So it seemed that it kind of married my interests in the right way. It was a mix of uh, art and science, so it felt right for me, and that's how I joined IT Roorkee, and I did my architecture there 5 years. Then I did my couple of internship here in Bangalore, and then Bangalore was a very booming space. I mean, it was early. We're talking about 2006, right? And startups were not that glamorous, right? Uh, and I came here and joined a couple of my seniors from college who were running some startups. They were trying to set up a services business or agencies. And one of my senior from college, MP Hariharan, he runs a design agency called Resident Design. And I was super inspired by his work. So I came here in Bangalore and spent some time working with him. And it kind of gave me an idea. And this was most into branding, graphic, visual communication. And while I was spending some time here, and it was more into the advertising and branding space. And then I started having this question, asking this question to myself that as a designer, with marketing and branding, and specifically marketing, you're persuading the users to do something or buy something, or when you're doing sales, right? So is there a design which inherently impacts human life without, I mean, the act of persuasion, or I mean, like beyond, the commercialization of this activity? So what I was saying was that, so when I came here and I was doing my internship and working under MP, I realized that a lot of the work that we are doing falls under the category of persuasion design, right? And I was questioning that, is there something that design can do inherently more deeper for human? And that's when I started exploring human-centered design and other things. And at some point of time, I gave the seed exam, which is the entrance examination for this master's program. And I got selected in IDC. Now, interestingly, while I was going to IDC, my core interest was to make films. Okay. And in fact, I spoke to some seniors there and called the alumni and said, you guys have 360 cameras or Mac G5 machine, because my interest is to make films. And they said, this is a design school. This is not a film school. And like, why do you want to come here and make films? I said, I don't know. That's what my interest is. Like, but they said, okay, we have those machines, but that's not for making films, but generally for visual communication and other kind of work. I mean, you have those resources. So I said, fair enough. I will figure out a way to use them and make my films. So that's how I landed up in IDC. And interestingly, 2006 was a year when when IDC was introducing interaction design as a course the first year. Before that, it was only visual communication and product design, which is industrial design. And that year, they started two courses, interaction and animation. And but I remember that when I was giving my interview to the professors, and they were like, do we want to take interaction because you come from an engineering background, part engineering background? Interaction is a good space for you. And I had no idea about that. I said I want to do visual communication because that's where you do photography, film, posters, graphics, brand, right? So I took visual communication at the end of the day, and I also ended up making two films. And not too proud about those films because when you make the films, you realize that how difficult it is to and what kind of hard work has to go behind this, right?
Always.
So I so yeah, I made those two films. But I think there's for something that I learned from that whole experience. I will tell you this. I quote it often. So I went to my in IDC. What happens is that you have this thesis projects, right? You have to do. So I went to my professor and said, "Okay, I want to make a film." He said, "No, no, no, hello, that's not how you select a project, okay, for your thesis. What you have to do is that you have to find a problem, and the problem has to, and then you have to figure out what is a good solution for that problem, and the solution has to then suggest the medium. So, for example, if you're working for a rural segment, then probably you need to make, and you're communicating something to the rural, and you need to make pamphlets. So design pamphlets. It's a print work. If let's say you have to make a documentary film, then design a documentary film. You for something, if you have to make a website, then design the website. So you're fundamentally being medium agnostic. The medium comes later. The problem comes first. Then a right assessment of the problem comes, and the solution shapes up, and the solution demands the medium, and that's how you reach to the medium that you want to do. And I was like really blown away because I never thought about design that way. I was like, you always start with the final, what's the outcome is, right?
Yeah.
But interestingly, what happened was, but okay, me being me, and like so I try to reverse engineer the whole thing. So I found a problem that will eventually make me do a film. Okay, so because I wanted to make films.
You were very adamant for sure.
So I think that's how so that's what I was doing in the IDC. But something very interesting happened. 2007 is when iPhone launched. And that gave a very good idea to the entire batch and everybody around us that digital experience is going to change completely, because the interaction and UX also existed before that, but it was highly limited. Only the operating systems like what Microsoft Windows or, Macintosh operating system, they were of a certain order of excellence. But you talk about websites and all, they were very basic. Like, and some of us would remember that, you used to make slices and then create gradient and all of those, how even to get a basic, shadow, you had to do so many, you had to basically use PNGs and all of that. It was very crappy. Okay. And good visual designers or creative people would find it very restrictive. And, but then when iPhone launched, you realize that this world is going to change. The growth of this space is going to be exponential. So I graduated and started a design agency called Cheese, which was into, it used to do branding and advertising, plus also product design and UX. I think we were one of the earliest UX design agencies based out of Bangalore. And so 2.5 years we ran it. I started it with a couple of my friends from IT Roorkee who were into the IT sector, and they knew how this thing is shaping up. So we did that. 2.5 years down the line, we got acquired by a software development company. I joined Frog, has spent 1 year at Frog, also went very deep into how design works at a scale at for MNCs and large corporates. And then came back to India to, for Indian consumer companies. So yeah, that's been my journey more or less.
Yeah, they really interesting. So let's just what I'm noticing from your journey, Shayak, is that you've hopped from one industry to another, and at the same time, what's common in that all of these products were working for scale. Like I think you were this is like your second e-commerce brand that you've been a part of. Like the earlier one was Misho. I think they are also heavily working on scale. Even Practo, though it's maybe like healthcare and stuff, but I think a lot of fundamentals are interrelated. What was it like? And then I think you were also part of EdTech. Was it? If you could take us, through your journey about like what were your learnings throughout, and what were you thinking? Was it a specific industry, was something that was you were intrigued towards?
Yeah. So, mm, see, I think two things that was happening was that because, like I mentioned, that I came to this UX design industry when it was shaping up. To be frank, there was no rules. Okay, and sometimes you got to draw the rules or make the rules, and that has been one of my greatest advantage, I would say, to be in this industry when it was shaping up. So even design leadership, when we took up some of the leadership roles, there was no a playbook attached to it. Now, um, so first I will talk a little bit about my transition from Frog to why did I decide to come and work for startups in India? Because in Frog I was working for large corporates like Tesla or Disney or Sharp, and making really large scale and really brilliant products. Okay, and Frog is a place where you learn the craft and the kind of details, eye for details that you need to kind of grow within yourself, and the way you're fanatic about quality. So that's what you learn from there. And and we're talking about 2011 and 12 when India was also seeing rapid growth. And I was questioning then that, great, I'm doing great things for organizations outside India, but can I come back and contribute to the Indian growth story, right? So I spent some time in Australia working for Tesla, and then I decided to come back, and I started working for. I joined Common Floor, okay, and which was into the Indian real estate industry. Now the idea was that yes, real estate is such a basic human need, and we all want to buy homes. Can we make this like easier and simpler for Indian users, Indian consumers? So that's how we started. And so I remember that when I joined there were very few designers there, so I had to build a team there. I had to kind of set up the whole function, discipline, structure, and and that was a learning experience by itself for me. And um, after Common Floor, I moved to Practo, which was into health tech. And there's a bit of story behind why I moved to Practo. Because in between, I had a health emergency. Okay. And that's again a very deep learning experience for me because when I was going through that serious health episode, I realized because see, when you are in college and you are, you think you are a brilliant designer, your professors also telling you that you are good or whatever. You think that you understand everything, and you know the users, you know all their pain points and everything. But when I was going through that health issue, and I was actually um, I've gone to Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai, and when you saw that whole setup, okay, and you realize that healthcare is not just limited to health, and it's about your emotions, your family. Okay, and when a serious health issue comes, it's about finances, it's about your career, it's about so many things. Now, and and I also say this to a lot of young designers that I think designers, it's very important to go through life to be able to also imbibe that what exactly are you designing. I mean, like to be having those nuances or those empathy about those basic things that you put into your design. So when I was going through that, I realized that like I probably did not understand the challenges of healthcare the way I now do. Okay, and so when I came back from that episode, I decided to go back and join Practo, which was into healthcare. So to contribute something back to the health tech industry. Okay, and the one thing that happens with Indian, it has happened with me at least in the Indian startup ecosystem, is that you go there to usually there's a sequence of phases that happen. Usually that has happened with me, which is that first you set up the team, you set up the function, you also get a little hands on doing few things, few charters, you build a team, you hire people, then you stabilize it, then you also mentor the next set of people, and after that you realize that you have outgrown that role to some extent, because now the next layer, or the next layer of leadership that you had built, they are now ready to kind of take the ship forward. And it has happened to me in few times, and not necessarily that it should happen everywhere, because if the growth is good enough, or there is a ladder that exists, then you can continue to grow up. But sometimes you hit that ceiling, right? And then you decide to pass on that baton to the next leadership or next set of people in the org. So I think in Practo, that was at least what I was looking at. I was like, I have the next leaders who can take this ahead. And I made a move and I joined Misho. Okay. And I spent almost a year at Misho. After that, I joined Vedantu. Right. And one thing is very interesting, which I realized by working in multiple organizations, is that while health tech, ed tech, everything has their own nuance, because there's a category to it, category nuance is there. What happens is that everybody at the core is using the fundamental playbook of e-commerce playbook, because I think over after spending a little bit of time there, I realized 80% of what you do in a B2C platform ends up being a derivative of what the Amazon playbook is, because they are the OGs of creating that whole playbook, right? And that way, e-commerce is where many of these things get built, and then it has passed on to other industries. So in a way, you say that even in healthcare, we needed a storefront. A storefront is a e-commerce construct, but it's still very relevant to health tech, ed tech. You go to a fintech platform, you will have a concept of a storefront. It might be small, big, large, or whatever. The scale might be different, but there is a concept of a storefront. There is a concept of a payment checkout flow. There's a concept of a referral. There is a concept of a loyalty program or whatever. So all these things that we see has somewhere evolved in the. I mean, first came up in the domain of the e-commerce, where behavioral economics and UX goes hand in hand and creates some of the patterns that we see today, right? So yeah, that's how I thought working in the e-commerce domain, where I wanted to go deeper, and I spent work with Misho and now with Myntra. I think that's how I think it allows you to be at the forefront of what kind of behavioral patterns you are trying to build within your customers and users.
Yeah, absolutely love the insights and the clarity behind your journey, Shaq. Uh, what what I can see from this side is that you are playing a very important role at one of the most important companies in India. Let me just say that. I think it's the scale, like millions and millions of people are buying stuff from this platform. Uh, more than getting stuff done, it's also a lot of this stuff is like responsibility that you have to kind of put the best foot ahead, and also it's representing India on a global scale. What as a design leadership, what are your roles and responsibilities?
Yeah. So so as a design leader, of course, I think the first thing is that you are setting the benchmark for some of the practices, right? And I think it's in Flipkart, Myntra lead the space when it comes to being responsible about how you design for users. And you can see right now that government is also being very very aggressive on those fronts, where they're saying that these platforms have to be really responsible in terms of dark patterns, ethics, compliances and everything, accessibility to some extent. I think one of the major area for us today and going forward is going to be the guardian of these charters. And how do you hold them up? See, I mean, frankly, and to be honest, uh, if you obviously the business is the priority, and sometimes these are the things which can slip through the cracks and might not be on the priority list for the larger organization, and that's where the design and sometimes also you kind of collaborate with the product to build the charters or frameworks around which these things can be taken care of. So as a, like you said, that we are selling at such a large scale and we are transacting at for so many people, it becomes very critical to kind of take care of these aspects of e-commerce. uh, yeah, I think this space, particularly this ethics, compliance, and guardrails and privacy, these are going to become very, very big given where our society is moving towards.
And wonderfully, like how the whole ecosystem is evolving, like the online shopping experience. And while we say that, there are definitely a lot of brands that are maybe not following the, doing their responsible, following their responsibilities by having like dark UX pattern, pushing people to pay, and stuff like that. And at the same time, I think the thing with these brands, I think that are sitting on the top, is that it's they also setting the trend for the rest of the industry to follow. How are you making, you know what, how are you prioritizing, like for example AR VR is something that we've been hearing a lot lately, like online shopping, in shopping experiences. You can, like fashion GPT and stuff like that. How are you, like, I'm sure it's your major role is kind of building that consistently building that foundation is also being set up, but it's like building a benchmark for the future and like consistently doing things that also puts you on the top. How are you making sure, like what's your framework around that? And I'm sure like since it's like such a huge brand, and there's so many people participate in it, how do you kind of like navigate and make sure that you consistently innovate?
Yeah, I think like you rightly said, uh, as a leading brand or leading platform, you have to continuously innovate. That is hands down is one of the you know um, key goals and charters for our study, that like, you have to continuously keep innovating. Now the question is that, are there any really solid framework that assures you, I mean, you can keep experimenting, you can keep innovating, but is there a framework that tells you that you are going the right direction or not? So the way things work today is because so many things are happening at the same time in the whole industry. Okay, I think the one of the way to kind of deal with is that, how can you make the product innovation or product experimentation cycle really, really sharper? And that's, I think, where we are, most of us are trying to. Because to be frank, um, there are experiments which we thought that it will be 100% successful, but they are not. And there are experiments we thought that they are probably the least impactful experiments that we are launching, going ahead with, and they have performed really well. So if you ask me personally, the way we look at it is that the only framework that we need to now focus on is that, how can you make this loop of uh, in doing this micro experiments really faster. Obviously, there are big charters, okay, that comes up. For example, in Myntra, in last few years, they have done few big areas which obviously develops because of the market conditions, and we have a good eyesight on it. For example, the Gen Z, fashion for Gen Z, and we launched Forward, and then there's a UGC, which is user generated content, that came up. Also, Fashion GPT, which we launched, which was one of the earliest, chat-based, e-shopping, fashion shopping experience that we built. Um, and some of them were experiments. Some of them we knew that this is a segment that is opening up. But beyond these large ones, if you ask us, it's all about doing those, myriads of small experiments and seeing what is helping our users at the end of the day. So when it all comes to personalization, when it comes to, our checkout flows, how can you make the checkout easier, or, even our PLP, PDP, funnel improvements, all of that, our storefront experience, there are there are hundreds of experiments that we are running over quarters, and the whole strategy there is that make the foundation so simple that it's easy to do these experiments and go live and see how it helps. Okay, obviously there is a whole structure of A/B testing. Okay, so you do release it to a set of users and then check how it's performing, and then you take it forward.
Yeah. Are you noticing, like, I've been noticing it a lot, that how these big brands are, big tech companies are trying to Genzify their whole tone of voice?
Yeah.
Is that something that you think is a need of the hour? Because I think I've been hearing so many, like a lot of these, big companies just talking openly, and like they try to crack it as, it's, I don't know, it's like maybe like a mission. What's your thought on it? Like, why is everyone just like, okay, there's a new generation that maybe behaves differently, but at the same time, do you think they're making a big scene out of it, or I'm just curious?
Well, you are actually right at catching it, but the point is, solution is something that is not very clear right now. So what we have understood by talking, because we are building for Gen Z, and what we understand is that uh, this generation is marked by certain behavior. We are saying that, okay, these are certain kind of traits and behaviors of this Gen Z, but that is probably something that is demonstrated by only 20 to 30% of that entire generation. There's also a huge segment of the generation which does not act or behave or work like that. Okay, the behavior layer or the visual layer that you're talking about, that is not that critical. What is critical is the need states that this generation has, which I think is relevant for everybody. And those who are solving for those need states, they they are successful regardless of whether you do a gentrification of your experience or not. For example, a large number of Gen Zs need affordable clothing. Okay, so the prices have to be affordable. You have to solve for that. Now, yes, you can make it, look very Gen Zs and like very, pump it up in its glitz and glamour and all of that, and try to make it little, uh, or make it very sustainable or something like that. But those are the key things that you still have to take care of. You can and there are some definite challenges there, because there's a segment of Gen Z which is very sensitive to how their transactions or choices are impacting the earth or the world.
Yeah.
Okay, but then price is a blocker. Okay, oh, can we provide an alternative to all of that at a low price? Yes, those are the things we'll have to figure out and solve for. So yeah, I think just what I've realized is that just a superficial layer is not going to help solve a Gen Z problem. You have to really solve their actual need states.
Hmm. Yeah, very, very, very well said, Shahid. I've been noticing that, uh, like, you have a lot of analytics, a lot of metrics where they see that, okay, it's good, this is a good time to start like a luxury segment and stuff like that. At what point, as a leadership, as a design, as as from the top, like how much design plays a role, and like how much they go together in order to take that decision?
Yeah. No easy answer to this, because every setup is very different. Okay, and design plays very different role in different organizations. But if I were to slightly generalize it, I would say that um, in the incumbent companies, um, uh, design uh, has a strong role to play. But even in a very well-established incumbent company, which is uh, a large part of the strategy comes from real market research and consumer research. Okay, and if at all design is a part of that exercise, then obviously design can contribute. If not, then you get those because those are really really foresights, okay, which comes from some of these. For example, large incumbent companies could go to consultancies, okay, and ask them to give them insights. And you have the BCGs of the world, or the parent companies of the world. They will go and do this. They come back with and I would say they are quite good sometimes. And I mean, there are stories where they have made wrong predictions, and but also there are good predictions that they give. And many large organizations depend upon that in terms of strategy. So once you have those cues, and they are not always 100% that you have to do this, but it gives you some directional idea that where you need to move. And those are good enough for either product or design to pick up and start building on. So yes, whether design is actually being an equal partner in building, finding those insights, in some cases yes, but many cases maybe not. But once you have those, you start building on top of that. So that's how. But when you come to really smaller orgs, okay, and where design is very close to leadership, their design actually ends up being so. So I would say that in multiple companies, I had different level of engagement or contribution at the strategy level, right? Um, in some cases where it was primarily experience based, it did have much more say, much more contribution to make. Somewhere where the business was it was in the process of the business was trying to figure out unit economics and the product market fit. Then it was a very different scenario.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Shai, I'm really curious to know how the whole industry is getting affected by AI, right?
Right.
I'm sure like a lot of young designers are getting kind of scared. Not scared. I think a lot of times it's like every other day people are trying to navigate from one tool to another. They're like every other day they're like AI generated imagery tools and stuff. How much do you think a company like Myntra can leverage and open to innovate in terms of the processes?
Yeah, I think see, I mean, AI is definitely becoming more and more critical. I mean, so okay, we have been trying a lot of AI tools, right? I definitely see that uh, the way it is developing, AI will become very core to the workflows that we have right now. In fact, it will change the workflow. I was giving a presentation recently. It had four layers, right? One is first is that you just use the AI tools to become efficient in your workflows. So if you are making graphics, you are using AI to create graphics faster or better or whatever. But eventually, you will also try to make you will try to re-innovate or redesign the workflow itself. So no longer maybe you need a PRD to be written separately, right from the metrics and some kind of information, or maybe the PRD is getting generated automatically, or maybe the PRD to design, instead of going to the brainstorming sites, first starts with designing, because you can actually feed that PRD and get the first level of prototype ready. And then the designers come in and deliberate on top of that, the product and design set together and say what is good, what is bad, and all that, right? So at some point of level 2 is where you will start changing the workflow a little bit. Then the third step is that where you will remove steps of the workflow, that okay, this is not even needed, okay. And in a eventually very high level, basically a lot of things will be heavily automated, but you will still need human eyes and human controllers to kind of make sure things are going rightly, and also to make the right choices, okay. And so that is how, right now what I see is that we haven't reached even level 2 where we are able to change the workflows because of these agents or these tools. But I think we'll very soon reach there. I know many people are using it. So, for example, I played with Cursor, I played with Lovable, did a little bit of coding on Gemini, a little bit, okay, and then mm, try to, and Chat GPT and all of that. So, but the thing is, are they at the stage where they can become a part of your workflow? Not yet, because they're not giving consistent results. You don't have those, boilerplate templates where you can everybody can start with same consistent points to kind of take the workflow forward. So I think there is a little bit of pieces that needs to come together. Now, having said that, but it will eventually happen. Now the question is that what will be the role of designer and how it will evolve. I think that is what we need to kind of understand. And I think uh, the core of what design used to do, like for example, and because see, I came from architecture, I think of whole these things in terms of systems. So for me, the UI is basically emergent framework out of very basic tokens and rules. Now, how do I create those rules of design? So if I am designing for Myntra is if you put all those context side by side, Myntra is an Indian company. It is serving Indian diaspora, okay, and Indian, audience. Its customers are of different economic segments. Then you take, it's in the fashion vertical. Then you take, that it has to differentiate from these verticals, and you put all those parameters together. What kind of core design choices are you going to make, which includes things like what are the brand colors going to be like? Mm, how are you going to use the brand color? With what intensity you are going to use one color versus another color? Mm, then typographic density, okay, typographic contrast, okay, elevation, softness, the humanist, level of your entire experience or font or whatever. And how do they have to interact? So abstracted parameters on top of that. But these are a bit of, I would say, maths and design combined. And I see it that way, that this is going to be a large case in terms of UX, because think about it, right? Because the musicians, I think some of the big great musicians, or about or singers, or the artists are also very good with are pseudo mathematician, because they would do all those like, and they will break down a big emotion or something into its constituent part, like for example, and that's how I relate to tokens versus this, like, so you have saregama pa, then you have chords. These are basically systems that we're creating, which will eventually add up to create your design. So for a large part of the design of uh, execution of design for these platforms, for tools, will need designers to do this orchestration or to do this framework creation. Okay. There will be always another 20% work which will require people to do the visual communication. For example, if tomorrow there's a new component that has to be created, which that use case never existed so far, somebody will have to think it from scratch. But today the problem is that those kind of scenarios are very rare.
Yeah.
I can just throw any kind of problem to AI, and it will figure out to solve it from the existing. It will do a permutation combination, but still there will be some areas, but the number of those scenarios will be much lesser. The one is that this architecture part, then there you have this solutioning part, and then you have those, and then once you, like I say, right, in experience, um, the part of his job of designers is that when there's too much of chaos, like for example in Bangalore, it's all chaotic. As a designer, what do we want? We want order here, right? The roads has to be at least, please be in straight line, or like when I see a lamppost which is tilted, I it feels jittery for me. So when chaos is heavy, then my job is to introduce order.
Yeah.
But when there is
Very well.
order, then you want to introduce chaos,
Yeah.
because that's the job of the designer. So I think those roles will always there. Okay, I think it that way. exactly what form and shape it will take, I can't say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely love your take there. That could be like the highlight of the podcast. Um, so, I feel you and the team and the kind of product you're working on is uh, you also see, I'm sure, from very closely the fashion culture and the consumption habit shifting, right? As I think as bunch of designers, it's a responsibility. What some have are you seeing some majority changes? Are you seeing some, like, what I'm seeing is that people are now more open for homegrown brands. Is that true? And what do you think are the habits that maybe young buyers or old buyers are following? Where the fashion ecosystem is heading, since like there are more than ever, ever, like, brands are there. They are also building their own platform, yet putting themselves out on platforms like Myntra. What have you, some interesting notifications that you've come up?
No, I think you're absolutely right. This is a new revolution or new kind of wave that has come in, and it has definitely it's a good thing that happened. This is a lot of homegrown brands started coming up. And in fact, Myntra, we had been one of the first to support that. We have a complete segment called Myntra Unique or Myntra Rising Star. These are this is where we kind of promote and we help these brands to kind of come up with how can they go to the market and like be more adapted and things like those. So I think this is happening, but you'd also understand that this is basically um, riding on the back of the social media boom that is happening. So one is brands, right? And I think brands were getting created, but then, uh, and in fact, long time back, 2010, 11, I actually, had one of my friends start a brand. It was difficult to take that brand to the masses because social media was not that prevalent, and distribution or discovery was very very problematic. But these, I think, what has happened in the last decade at least, or last few years, is that because of social media, people are more and more open to inspiration on through social media, and this is also a challenge, an area that we are trying to, um, as a platform, we also want to address, which is how do you solve for inspiration. Now, if you see all these brands, one is that they're bringing out something new or something, but they're also trying to inspire the users to kind of try something new out. Okay, and your entire Instagram feed or TikTok or these, they are heavily about how do you inspire the users to find how they want to kind of express themselves, and these brands give people that opportunity to do that. Also backed by the kind of financial growth some of the segments in the India has seen in the last few years, because of the growth, uh, also is kind of fueling this. So I think this is definitely a movement that has happened over the last few years, and platforms are also supporting it. I mean, they are there to stay. That's true.
Plus, I'm sure it's like wonderful to see from this side, like, what all styles are available, right? And maybe try it on yourself as well.
I mean, I'm slightly conservative when coming to different styles, but the best thing about being Myntra is that Myntra also sometimes we have this one exercise where we get to do our own photo shoot, huh? And you can style yourself, and then you can go a little crazy. So I've done that.
Nice. Like, even the drip you have right now is like pretty very nice. Um, I think talking about designers and I think the expectation from designers today are, every other day is just like one or the other requirement that's just getting added up to the skills, since we have to go with the time, and like you should have all the skill sets to make the ends move. What I've also been noticing, which is a great thing, especially for the design community, is that a lot of big brands like Uber, Google, everyone's like having their own design event.
Hmm.
I think you all did one as well, right?
Yeah.
What's this trend about? Like, why is it happening more and more?
Yeah, I think organizational design events are very straightforward. I mean, obviously, I mean, one of the obvious, thing that you're trying to address is that uh, you have a really vibrant design team in an organization, and you want to, have a dialogue with the rest of the world about what you are doing. Mm. And give them a sneak peek into what you have been working on. Also give the outside world a platform to kind of showcase their work. I think this this whole exercise is, while it has obviously some objective, which is to be able to open up or help the internal design team to kind of showcase and get out of their design environment and get exposure to the world. Also, attract talent, build brand building, and all of those objectives. But I think it does a lot of good thing about the industry as a whole, because the community is still, I mean, though I think we now have a very very large design community that has grown over the last 5-6 years. uh, it brings together the designers, and allows them to kind of have those dialogue and conversation, to share knowledge. I think this helps. I think I have been part of other companies' events, and we have an event called Design Mix, which is a very popular one, and we attract a huge audience every year. It's just growing every time. Um, and yes, I think there is so much of hunger for people to see that what is going on in these organizations. And what happens outside that is that when they go back, they start doing some of the young fresh graduates, or they start experimenting with a lot of things driven by those ideas, and they come back. And I think those are really interesting things to see, that it motivates people, it inspires people to do good work. And when you listen to leaders, last time we had the pleasure of um, inviting and hosting Harish. Okay, and when he talks about craft, people do feel inspired. Designers, I think, it's much more needed to have that creative confidence now, and these platforms and these events, I think, give that uh, to the whole audience.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like 5 years ago, as I think we've already mentioned, talked about that. It wasn't like not it was not accessible. Like a lot of dialogues were not accessible. People didn't know who to talk to. What's actually happening inside. And I think what these events are doing is like like of course bridging the gap, but also like getting all the design community closer to the rest of the elements of a business, which is amazing. By the way, absolutely love what Harish puts out, right? uh,
And I will just add to that. So, for example, I mean, and now that we do product design, okay, and we are day in day out, okay, having dialogues with product business. Event like, for example, Design Up. I don't know if you've been there. Design Up. So when you go there, my complete motivation is that you see a work of Suresh Ariat, or somebody like Kriti.
oh, she runs this agency called Turmeric.
I think yes, yes,
Oh
yes, yes.
yeah, I love her work.
So,
Yeah.
some of these artists, when you see their work, and you don't have to be a designer to appreciate that. Anybody who is sitting there, and sometimes I feel that some of these work, they don't even need a presentation. I mean, they don't need to say anything. If they just put their work out there,
Hmm.
okay, and it just moves you, inspires you. I just simply go for those. Like,
Yeah.
when you come back highly refreshed, and you recall where you started from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Because there are people from all phases of their lives, right?
yeah.
People who are just starting out, and also like people from the leadership. So it's like a great mix. Especially like, I mean, Bangalore as a city, I think it does a lot to the design. I think Bangalore is a designer's paradise,
Yeah.
right?
No, I think it has that vibe that attracts. are good designers. Yeah.
Yeah. So you feel that a lot of I genuinely feel, and this might be, I think not a lot of people are talking about it, that we as a country, since we have so much craft, like around fashion especially, such an amazing history, still we are not able to build global brands, and global brands are picking up our stuff and making a
Like recent.
noise. This is the recent one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not though from a purely from a fashion brand building backgrounds that I can. But see, I will expand this question a little bit here. Okay, that that are we creating a unique identity, or have we elevated our own art or craft that exists to a level where um, it's deep and also is ready for the global consumption. So I think some pockets we have been able to do that, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done. You take any kind of craft, okay, maybe let's say take a Maithili art, or or you know uh, Mughal art, or or you take all this, because I sometimes try to draw, but then I think there is so much work needed to kind of, because what has happened is that in the past, I see we are adapting it to serve the needs uh, which are not exactly marrying the the ethos of that. So there is definitely some gap there, and I think there's a potential of doing that. Obviously it also comes along with that how we position ourselves across the globe, right? And that exercise I think needs to be also done. Like, do we have a, established identity of Indian fashion? What does Indian fashion means? And we have been able to kind of take it to the level where uh, you know uh, we are able to kind of put it across the globe and say, okay, this is what it is. And see, it's not isolated. I mean, your art and culture also follows where your economy or your country is also positioned. Okay, today probably China would be able to influence more on some areas just because they are in a certain global position. So I think a lot of things has to come together to make this happen. Yeah, there is enough hard work happening, and there I think is a lot of more hard work required. So it's and see, once in a while, one is that, are there success stories? There are once in a while there are success stories, like there are some brands which gets global recognition, but to make it a consistent, a very scaled, and a very proportionally large movement, I think a lot of things has to come together, right? Uh, yeah, I think.
Yeah, I feel I think we are just at it. I feel we're just like we're just getting started. Like even then, I was talking to one of the founders who runs like a really Bhavisha. She's a founder of Capsule. The you should definitely check out the kind of work they're doing. And she mentioned one thing that kind of stuck with me, that just creating a product or like maybe printing a t-shirt won't create a brand, right? You need to build a world around it. You need to build a tone of voice. You have to consistently build that trust out there.
No, I totally agree. I mean, and see, when we travel across the world, we see that, uh, that this, and like you say, this world building is so important, right? I mean, I was just trying to think that, okay, we do have Ramayana and Mahabharata that we kind of refer back to. And and there was a time when Chandrakanta was one such, do you remember this?
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. It used to be like a
It was a TV series that came up.
yeah on Doordarshan or
I don't
something, right?
remember the name of the writer, but that's an epic, that some
Yeah,
Indian epic that was written, and now
very extensive and like so many
very
characters. Yeah,
now you think about but if you think of Western there are so many examples. I only know about Chandrakanta, or I don't think I know about any other such extensive universe that has been created. Okay, in India, and I think we are trying now in many cases. But you think about, we have Lord of the Rings, we have Harry Potter, we have Narnia, we have so many different worlds. I mean, the entire Avenger world or whatever. I mean, like the comics universes that we have. So those level of storytelling is something that I think we have potential to build. And we have been doing, we started this Bahubali and all of that.
And not sure if I mean, there's definitely the kind of an image that we are putting out as our pop culture and our fashion.
But I think my only challenge with this that whatever we're building right now is basically inspired heavily from what we are seeing. So we have to build something which is very unique and grounds up from here. How can we do that?
I think it's also the people, what they are looking for. Like I think I was
but this is the whole thing, right? I don't know if it was Game of Thrones or what, Lord of the Rings or something. Like, see, I mean, some of the folks who started writing these things, and see, I'll take this conversation in different direction. And it's very interesting. So, see, I believe, there are, and let's start from the point of view of a company. So, an organization has three kind of people here, 3 or 4. The first one, of course, the founders and the stakeholders, investors. They are a set of people because they are basically there to make. I mean, they have invested. They have put the capital, or they have put their sweat equity or whatever. So they are the ones who are in. It's a part of their life. So there are different. There's set of these are a different category of people. Then comes the employees, and in the employees there are 3 kind of people. One is I call expert. Now experts are those people who are completely absorbed in their craft. They're the people who are basically, they have figured out that this is what I want to do, and they have dedicated their life to that. And we know people like those, right? Okay, artists, craftsmen, or even if somebody a coder who says that, okay, I will do PhD and I will all my life I will be be focusing on maybe solving for AI or whatever, and go deep into that. And these are the experts. The experts don't sell themselves. Okay, businesses come to the expert. Experts don't go to businesses. So if I want to build, put a great, I want to create a, let's say, a table, a woodwork. I need great woodwork. I will go to find a guy who is absolutely good with woodwork, and he's probably is a master craftsman of that. And companies do that. Like, for example, I was telling you that, how Apple went to Hartmut to hire, okay, and because they needed somebody, an expert to kind of design that whole thing. So there are experts. And then there are professionals. So they are experts, but they are basically adapted to an organization. They use their expertise, but to adapt it to make sense that how it is going to add value to the organization. So these are the people who sometimes suggest that we should go to the even a higher level of expert, right? And mostly an organization is run and driven by these professionals. Everybody else is apprentice. And for me, an apprentice is somebody who needs supervision. Now, these days we have levels, right? Senior level, lead level, this level, that level. I think all of that still is apprentice till the time you reach the level of being a professional where you are so updated about everything around you that you can make the right choices for whatever has to be done in your discipline. So this is 3 levels. Now, in this, it feels like it's always good to be an expert. But we have to also understand that there are many experts who probably will not, be financially successful always. Because maybe you are a great wood craftsman, but right now, that's not the model the market is demanding. Okay. And as a result, you will not probably make financial gains. Okay. Imagine today somebody is able to play good cricket. He's making shitload of money. 20, 30 years back, they were not. So there is a angle of timing, there's an angle of space and all of that. But what defines experts is that regardless of that, they are focused in what quality of the work that they're doing. They are not moved or deterred by what the masses want. I think uh, we in India we need more such experts, and we need to celebrate those experts because they are the ones. So the reason I was saying was that somebody I was reading, I don't know, it was J.R.R. Martin or somebody who wrote that book, that he spent his half of his life in some isolated corner writing that book. And when he was writing, did he think that he was going to be so successful? I think he had no idea. But you have to get so consumed by that emotion of doing that, building that world, that it has the potential to change the world eventually. But yes, there are Van Gogh and other people who have died poor. Okay, and I think
Yeah.
so yeah, it comes with its own pros and cons. Okay, but I think we need such depth, such craft actually.
Yeah. I love how this kind of turned into something very a little deeper and like, around the mindsets. And I definitely agree with you, Shag. I genuinely feel that, and it's not like they're not people like it. I think it's just like having these spaces to explore and like to, so that, such people can come forward, and I think that's changing, which is a great thing. So that leads us to the end of the podcast, Shayak, and a lot of insights. I would love to know from you the kind of future that you are looking for. What's the future forward around what you're doing, and around the e-commerce space and the industry in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, what I'm excited about is that uh, along with whatever development is happening in AI and all of that in e-commerce, I think many technologies are going to come through together, right? Um, and we are going. See, I mean, in last few years, if you look at it, 10, 15 years, 10, 15 years back, when Infosys, TCS, and some of these companies built their entire empire or, like their businesses, it was on back of digital transformation. Then 20s, in 2000s, it was about large corporates and organizations going digital, mm, and how that entire transformation takes place. Um, I think something similar is going to happen now. And after that, when those transformations happened, mobile technology came in, and it was a global transformation that was happening. But then it was still, I would say in one direction that we were seeing it. I feel that with multiple new technologies that are coming in, AI plus robotics plus other things, like I'm very I have my eyes on this new technology called BCI, brain computer interface.
Oh, yeah. Been seeing a lot of innovation around that.
Yeah, the reason I get excited about it is because I usually ask myself this question, that see, uh, uh, the humans have not figured out another way of inputting text than a typewriter, which then converted into a keypad and then it become a digital keypad. That's still the most discreet way of entering. You want to communicate, enter data into your system. Speech is another way of sharing, but it's not discreet. And there is no way to kind of break that. You still need a keypad to enter text. I mean, AI has come, but still you have to type.
Yeah.
And while the whole thing is in your head already. And that is where I feel that if at all it reaches a consumer adoption, BCI can completely change the world as it is, right? But I don't know how far it is from, at what, before it becomes a really acceptable way of living or doing things. But yeah, I mean, but robotics is there, but AI is there. But I think it's the age of transformation is going to come. Okay, and the designers, if you think about what we were doing when the digital transformation was happening, we were not too consumed by making just screens. We were actually had to design the whole workflows. We had to design. There was a concept of service design, right?
Yeah.
There were so many other things that was there that designers had to do just then solving for one particular area. So I think I'm personally very excited about those kind of opportunities that will open up for designers. Okay, and when either it's through AI transformation or workflow transformation, or complete way the economy evolves and the world around you transforms, I think designers will have a huge role to play. We have to go back to our core and start seeing beyond screens or beyond one medium or one modality of this. I think there will be a lot of exciting things to do there.
Yeah, very very excited for the future, and the innovation happening as we speak, right?
Yeah.
All right, Shag. And absolutely, love the conversation that we had, and I hope to see you very soon again.
Yes. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for this lovely conversation and this whole group for having me here. It was fun talking about things, just meandering through different thoughts, but hope this was a good takeaway.
Yeah, it was actually a lot of insights. Like we all are kind of, now.
Thanks, Deepak. Yeah. Cool.